Hello, everybody, and welcome to La Casa de Esperanza's Orientation for VITA Volunteers. This is being presented by La Casa's VITA team, and my name is Daniela. On today's agenda, we'll be going over the site coordinator contact information, an overview of our onboarding guide, your next steps as a VITA volunteer, and upcoming volunteer opportunities. This slide has our site coordinator contact information. Again, my name is Daniela. I'm our lead VITA site coordinator. I handle the volunteer recruitment as well as volunteer training, and then our site operations once the tax season starts. My colleague Juliana Torres is also helping lead the VITA program this year, and she also does volunteer recruitment as well as VITA site operations. I've been with La Casa since 2015, and Juliana has been with the organization since 2019. We'll be doing an overview of our onboarding guide, and these are some of the different topics that we'll be hitting. We'll do an overview of La Casa as an organization, as well as the different programs offered. We'll go over the Center for Financial Stability, that is the department that our VITA team is under, and what we do for the community. We'll do a VITA program overview, as well as a review of the volunteer standards of conduct and quality site requirements. We'll go over the VITA client process, the VITA volunteer process, and then the testing materials you'll need for your IRS certifications. So I'm just going into our onboarding guide. Again, these are all of the different things that we'll be reviewing, and this guide is intended to help both new and returning VITA volunteers navigate the volunteer process. A little bit of an overview of La Casa de Esperanza. We were founded in 1966 and based in Waukesha, Wisconsin. We're dedicated to empowering individuals and families, particularly those from low-income and Latino communities, and we do this through education, workforce development, financial stability programs, and community support services. La Casa de Esperanza means the House of Hope, and we hope to provide opportunities for full social and economic participation in society, serving all in need with a special focus on the Hispanic community. That picture there is a 1978 press photo of La Casa's first center on Ryan Street in Waukesha. We started off in one residential house, which was a daycare center as well as employment services. And since then, our campus has grown a few blocks where we have multiple buildings for a lot of our different departments. Next, we'll be reviewing the programs offered at La Casa. We have a charter school which serves children K-4 through 8th grade. They also run a dual language program. We have an early childhood education program, which focuses on providing early, continuous, intensive, and comprehensive child development and family support services to low-income infants and toddlers and their families, as well as pregnant women and their families. These services are typically for children up to the age of 3 years old. We have our weatherization program, which assists qualified low-income residential households in Jefferson, Waukesha, and Milwaukee by identifying energy waste and providing cost-effective energy-saving measures and education. We have La Casa Villages, which provides affordable, safe housing for low-income elderly and disabled individuals, and that is subsidized housing as well. All of those programs, you can contact the phone number 262-547-0887 if you'd like any additional information. You can also go to our website at www.lacasadeesperanza.org. Now, I work within the Center for Financial Stability. We provide comprehensive employment training, financial and asset building services to low-income individuals who are unemployed or underemployed and are seeking economic self-sufficiency. We also house the homeownership, employment, and VITA program. We do have a different phone number than the main building. Our phone number is 262-899-6784. Our financial counseling and homeownership program offers home buyer education classes that cover the entire home buying process. They provide information on home buyer grants and include insights from professionals such as realtors, lenders, home inspectors, and insurance agents. La Casa's homeownership program is HUD approved. Also, another thing about this program is that clients don't need to particularly want to buy a home. If they are renting, they can also still get financial counseling assistance. We also have our employment program, which provides a full range of employment services and connects well-qualified individuals to local employers. Program services work to improve client employability and promotability. And lastly, our VITA program, which provides free federal and state income tax return preparation and filing for low to moderate income families and individuals. Our VITA program does have a specific phone line for clients and volunteers. They can be reached at 262-832-1534. Next is the Center for Financial Stability team. We have our director, Gina Sanchez, who oversees all of our programming, our employment specialist, Vanessa Arenas, who oversees the employment program, our administrative assistant, Amy Albeter. We have 3 HUD housing counselors, Crystal Monsivais, Pedro Rodriguez, and Alicia Meraz. Again, they help walk people through that home buying process, but they also provide financial counseling, and that program is available for folks who speak Spanish. Actually, all of our programming, we do offer bilingual services. And then we have me and Juliana as well. If you have any questions about this guide, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. So a little bit of an overview of our VITA program. We've been offering this program for over 20 years now. Beyond tax preparation, we do like to educate families on filing, tax responsibilities, and how to maximize credits to strengthen their financial stability. During the tax season, we prepare 4 years worth of tax returns. So that's our current year, 2025, and we go back to 24, 23, and 22 for tax years. We also offer virtual tax preparation through a platform called Get Your Refund. This is a nonprofit platform by Code for America in partnership with the IRS. We prepare returns in person. We do some drop-off returns. We have a drive-through at our Waukesha office. And again, then we do that virtual tax preparation as well. We do have 2 offices. We have one in Milwaukee on Martin Luther King Drive. We're at that office on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, about normal business hours. And then we are at the Waukesha office Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we do more evening appointments at that office, as well as Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Thursday, we do require appointments as well as on Saturday, but on Friday, we do take walk-in clients. So as long as they have everything they need in regards to our IRS guidelines, we can prepare their returns without an appointment on Fridays. Next, we'll be going over the different volunteer positions. We're looking for administrative assistants who can help schedule appointments and welcome clients when they arrive, intake screeners who will confirm the client identification and guide them through the intake process, tax preparers who prepare income tax returns, site coordinators who help oversee daily operations, volunteers, and help with the quality control of our VITA site to ensure accurate returns in compliance with IRS guidelines. Quality reviewers who ensure that each completed tax return is accurate, complete, and compliant with IRS rules, and Spanish translators who focus on facilitating communication by translating key tax-related discussions. So who does the VITA program serve? We focus on low to moderate income taxpayers, and for the tax year 2025, the maximum income threshold is $68,675. Now, that is our income threshold, but that number can fluctuate depending on family size or financial situations. So that is done on a case-by-case basis. Anyone who is over that income threshold typically has to be referred to a site coordinator so we can make sure that they qualify for our program. We also focus on individuals with disabilities as well as elderly clients, and we have taxpayers. We also focus on taxpayers with limited English proficiency. In 2024 through 2025, we prepared 2,600 returns, and 99% of them were filed electronically. 98% of our clients were considered low income. We generated $4.6 million in tax refunds, and that is federal and state combined. And then we do have what's called a Stash Your Cash initiative, where we encourage clients to save all or part of their refund, either for a financial goal or for a rainy day fund. So 58% of our clients saved all or part of their refund, and that generated 1.3 million directed into their savings accounts. La Casa does have a non-discrimination policy, and we are committed to equitable access for all clients, and we do not discriminate based on any legally protected characteristic. We treat everyone with dignity and respect and expect staff, volunteers, and partners to foster an inclusive, welcoming, and respectful environment. And this also pertains to volunteers as well. We expect clients to be respectful and to really appreciate what our volunteers are doing. Now, within the VITA program, we have something called scope of services. And what that means is some tax scenarios are considered out of scope for our programs, in that our volunteers are not trained or certified to handle them because of IRS guidelines. A scope of service chart is provided in the publication 4012, and this is on the IRS website as well. The tax situations listed below are some of our most common out-of-scope scenarios, though they don't encompass the full list of situations that fall outside the VITA program scope. So these are returns that unfortunately we cannot prepare, and they have to be referred to a professional preparer. Now, we cannot solicit any business from them, so we can't send them to a specific tax preparer. However, we can give them the 211 phone number. We can help them look up tax preparation sites within a certain mile radius. So we can still help them maybe find a different program or tax preparer, but we can't prefer them to one specific person. So some of the most common out-of-scope scenarios are going to be clients who want to file married filing separately, clients who are cryptocurrency trading, um, taxpayers who have complex self-employment business income. So if they employ other people, if they have business expenses exceeding $35,000, if they want to deduct costs for the use of their home, or if they have any inventory or losses reported on a Schedule C, they would be out of the scope for our program. We also cannot prepare any returns with rental property or expenses, which would be reported on a Schedule E, or farm income or losses. And there are a few other things there, but those are the most common. Amended returns, we do occasionally have to prepare. However, we cannot do an amended return unless we previously prepared the original return. Amended returns are typically scheduled after the tax season so that we can prioritize the current year clients. And then we do not prepare returns that are older than the tax year 2021. Next is our volunteer standards of conduct and quality site requirements. So all VITA volunteers have to go through the volunteer standards of conduct training and sign off on a form called a 13615 Volunteer Standards of Conduct Agreement. Essentially, this form says that you agree and adhere to all of the volunteer standards of conduct. And so we'll be going over the 6. So the first is to follow all quality site requirements. Now you'll be going in these in more detail when you do your volunteer standards of conduct training and test. So we don't need to go through all of them right now. Really, the first 5 quality site requirements will be pertaining to volunteers, but 6 through 10 is really for site coordinators who are helping run VITA sites. The next volunteer standards of conduct is to not accept payment or ask for donations or accept refund payments for federal or state tax return preparation from customers. So for any return that we prepare, if they're getting direct deposit, we tell clients that their name does need to be on that bank account in order for them to receive the refund. Sometimes clients are really, really grateful and they want to give you like a little tip. Unfortunately, you just let them know that you cannot accept any payments because of our IRS standards. Number 3, do not solicit business from taxpayers who help or use the information you gained about them taxpayer information for any direct or indirect personal benefit for yourself and any other specific individual or organization. Again, that goes back to even being able to recommend a tax preparer. Unfortunately, we cannot solicit any business from taxpayers, even, if you think it might benefit them. Number 4, do not knowingly prepare false returns. For most people, it's kind of an obvious one, but sometimes you'll notice that certain things can cause refunds to be higher, and the client will want you to really get them the highest refund they can, and that is our goal, but we have to do that honestly. Number 5, do not engage in criminal, infamous, dishonest, and notoriously disgraceful conduct or any other conduct considered to have a negative effect on the VITA program. And number 6, treat all taxpayers in a professional, courteous, and respectful manner. Now, if you were to fail to comply with any of these standards, it could result in, but is not limited to, the following: removal from VITA programs, inclusion in the IRS volunteer registry to bar any future VITA activity indefinitely, deactivation of La Casa's site EFIN number, termination of La Casa's partnership with the IRS, removal of all IRS products, termination of grant funds from the IRS, or referral of your conduct for potential TIGTA and criminal investigations. Fortunately, we have never had to remove a volunteer or send a referral for the IRS volunteer registry, but we do need to let volunteers just know about what those standards are. Next, we'll go over the Volunteer Protection Act. This is a public law that generally protects volunteers from liability for negligent acts they perform within the scope of their responsibilities in the organization for whom they volunteer. This isn't written exclusively for the IRS. It's a public law and relates to organizations that use volunteers to provide services. So let's say 1 year you prepare a client's return and something was left off of it. Maybe you forgot to ask a certain question and something was missed. If they were to face penalties from the IRS, you wouldn't be liable for that. The only time when you would be liable is if you are knowingly preparing false returns. And then due diligence. Tax preparers must use due diligence to ensure returns are accurate and complete. For VITA volunteers, this includes verifying identities, providing quality service, and helping taxpayers understand their responsibilities. Volunteers may rely on taxpayer information in good faith, but must question anything unclear or inconsistent. If something seems unusual or concerning, do not prepare the return and notify the site coordinator. We definitely want to make sure that all of our volunteers, from our admin assistants to intake screeners to tax preparers and quality reviewers, feel comfortable with what they're doing. And so if you ever have a moment where you're feeling uncomfortable, please feel free to come let us know and we can help work through that situation or maybe take that client on. Number 6, we'll be going through our client process, and this process explains the steps a client follows throughout their tax appointment. Now, some of these procedures may be different from other VITA sites because each site may have found methods that work better for them. So our intake process includes a volunteer or staff member greeting the client and explaining the process. The client is informed that they must complete a Form 13614C intake interview and quality review sheet. And really quick, I'm just going to, oh, I can't click on the link, but a Form 13614C is a form provided by the IRS to our organization and all VITA sites that really encompasses all the information we need to collect from a client in order to prepare the return. The client is also going to have to participate in an interview with the preparer. They do have to answer questions, yes or no, or further explain. If they do not participate in the interview, then we would not be able to prepare the return. They also need to take part in a quality review by a different preparer or site coordinator. And one of the things about VITA programs is that the client is definitely going to be asked maybe the same question by multiple different people. And while that may be frustrating to some, we do need to ask that question multiple times just to ensure that we're getting all the information that we need and that nothing's being missed. Because, the quality reviewer may catch something that was originally missed by the intake screener, or the tax preparer might catch something the intake screener missed. So, whatever the case is, we want to make sure we're being very thorough. And when you explain that to a client, they usually take that pretty well. So then the intake screener is going to verify that both spouses are present for joint returns and that the client and their spouse has photo IDs, and there should be social security cards or ITIN letters for everyone listed on the return. So let's say we have a married couple. Both of them are going to need their photo IDs and social security cards, but then we will also need to see social security cards for their dependents. So if they have two children, they should have four social security cards in all and then two IDs. We also want to be sure that all their tax documents are present. And the intake form will really walk you through all the different income statements. So we want to make sure they have all those forms with them. Sometimes they're like, oh my God, I forgot a W-2. So if we have the time, they can go back and get it or print it off. Sometimes we do need to reschedule the appointment, but we want to make sure that they have everything they need before we start entering in their information into the tax software. Once the intake screener confirms those details and has a conversation with the client, the screener then makes copies of IDs, Social Security or ITIN cards, and tax documents and gives the client the Form 13614C as well as any additional forms. Typically, we do have like a survey that we give as well as a form that will ask additional questions that regard to the state tax return. So the client does need to fill out quite a bit of paperwork. And if they need any assistance, if they can't fill out the form, then the intake screener would help them answer those questions. If they don't understand a question, we want to make sure we explain it. For our older folks, sometimes we have to talk a little bit louder or slower. So you definitely want to pay attention to the client that you're serving and just know that their needs could be a little different. Some people have no problem filling out those forms, but some people need a little bit more assistance. So when the client finishes their paperwork, the intake screener is going to ensure that all the questions are answered, verify the dependency status for the taxpayer and spouse if they're married, check pages 2 and 3 against their documents, noting any missing items, and confirm the taxpayer was within the site's scope of service. So the last thing that we want is to have a taxpayer come in and fill out all that intake paperwork and go through an interview and a quality review. And then within the quality review, we realize they're out of scope and we actually can't prepare the return. That can definitely make some clients a little bit frustrated. So we do the best that we can to screen in the intake process as well as the interview process. And then the intake screener is also going to want to make sure that they have all the necessary documents so that it's ready for the preparer. Then the completed intake file and copies are given to a site coordinator who will assign the return to a preparer based on their certification level. Now, there are different certification levels: basic, advanced, military. We do require all of our volunteers who are preparing taxes to certify at the advanced level. And that's so we can ensure that clients aren't facing long wait times and that everybody is kind of being seen typically in the order that they arrive. Uh, then we move into our interview process. So only IRS certified volunteers can interview our clients. The preparer escorts the taxpayer to a station and will conduct the interview by verifying the photo ID and Social Security or ITIN cards, reviewing the Form 13614C, asking them open-ended questions, determining filing status and dependents, reviewing income expenses and other tax documents, and addressing any taxpayer concerns or questions. This is a great time to verify information that may or may not make sense to you. So let's say we have a taxpayer who is 68. So we know they're over the age of retirement, but they don't have any 1099-Rs and didn't mark off any Social Security income. We can double check in and just say, hey, I was just wondering if you had any retirement income or Social Security. And then they'll let you know, like, oh, yeah, I forgot to mark Social Security and I have that form right here. So this is just a good time to verify all that information and to kind of be sure you're asking questions that maybe the client doesn't understand. After that interview process, when it's determined that the tax preparer has everything they need to complete the return, we move into actually preparing the return. Um, so the IRS certified volunteer will enter all the information into the tax software, which is TaxSlayer, using the interview, the Form 13614C, and supporting documents. If any discrepancies arrive, correct Form 13614C, add notes, and keep the taxpayer engaged to ensure all information is accurate and complete. After the preparation, we move into the quality review process. So after all of the information is entered into TaxSlayer, a site coordinator will complete a quality review. We do a quality review for every single return that we prepare, and this review ensures that tax laws are correctly applied and the return is error-free based on the Form 13614C, the interview, and supporting documents, as well as preparer notes. An effective quality review includes confirming identity and identification numbers, engaging the taxpayer in the review, verifying the quality review checklist items, and that is in the 4012, as well as reviewing supporting documents and tax law references. We also remind the taxpayer that they are responsible for all of the information that's being reported. Now, self-reviews are not allowed. A certified volunteer, other than the preparer, must conduct the review. If errors or incorrect information are found, the reviewer and preparer must correct them before the review is finalized. A best practice is to compare the current return to the prior years if available. Before printing and signing, the reviewer should ask if the taxpayer has any questions. After a complete quality review has been done, 5 disclosures have to be reviewed and signed with the client. So the first 2 are relatively the same. One is the consent to use information, and one is the consent to disclose information. Essentially, what that means is taxpayers give us authorization to use their data for reporting purposes, and we give that data to our program funders and partners. Now, we aren't reporting any personal information like their name, social security number, anything like that. This is just being generated into statistics such as 98% of our clients were low income, or 50% of them were head of household returns. So that information is important to report for us because it's how we receive the funding to have the program for free. The third disclosure is the consent to disclose tax return information to VITA TCE sites, and that allows us to share prior year data with other VITA sites for easier preparation. So what that means is if they come to our VITA site this year, and they give us permission to disclose that information, next year, if they come back to us or if they go to another VITA site, all of it within TaxSlayer. A little bit faster to prepare. The fourth consent form is Form 8879, which is the e-file signature authorization, and that confirms that the taxpayer reviewed the return, is allowing e-filing, and authorizes payment withdrawals if that's needed. And lastly, we have, and this is new, we have a rejection disclosure and client acknowledgement. And this explains what happens if a return is rejected, the common reasons for rejection, and the importance of accurate contact information for resolution. And last, we need the client to sign the completed tax return. After the return's been completed and quality reviewed, the preparer should carefully review the return with the client and confirm their understanding and responsibility for it. Typically, we do this by reviewing the 4012 with the client. Once this is done, the tax preparer may print the return, have the client sign the paper consent forms, and provide the client with copies of their tax return, the signed consent forms, and a handout explaining how to track refunds or make payments to the IRS or Wisconsin Department of Revenue. Next, we'll be reviewing our volunteer process. So this process outlines the steps needed to get started, and requirements for this may also differ from other VITA sites. So step one is to complete an application and background check. Typically, if you're watching this orientation, you've already completed one. However, if you haven't yet, please make sure to do that. And also, if you need this onboarding guide, please make sure to send me an email and I can get this sent over to you. Our VITA volunteer application does need to include a photo ID as we do a background check for every volunteer. And this application is required for new and returning volunteers. So every year we do need to update that application. Step two is to watch our orientation presentation, which you are doing right now. After you're done watching this orientation, please go ahead and complete the orientation confirmation form so that I'm aware that you've watched it and are ready to move on to the next step. Step three is to complete your training and certifications. So all volunteers must pass the required IRS certification tests for their role. Your training path depends on your position and preferred learning style. So to the right is a little table that lists the different volunteer positions and the tests that you need to take. So if you're an office assistant, you need to take 2 tests, the volunteer standards of conduct test, as well as the intake interview and quality review test. And that goes all the way through to the site coordinator. Now, for administrative and assistants and intake screeners, you'll receive in-person shadowing opportunities to learn your responsibilities. So you do not need to register for our guided Zoom sessions unless you're kind of interested in the tax preparation aspect of it as well. However, you are still required to complete the IRS certification tests independently. Now, if you need any guidance or if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. For tax preparers, you can choose to learn independently using this guide, the testing booklet, and the IRS training materials and publications, or you can join our VITA team for guided virtual training. So the training consists of 2.5-hour-long Zoom sessions covering the navigation of key websites, IRS publications, and tax software, while also introducing basic tax law principles. These sessions are recommended for first-time volunteers, and there is a link where you can register for courses. We do ask that you don't mix and match the courses, that you just pick one. However, if you make it to the first session but aren't able to make it to the second session for whatever reason, just let me know and we can set up a one-on-one. Now, if you're planning on volunteering virtually, you'll also need to get familiar with our Get Your Refund platform. So the training for that is provided directly by Get Your Refund. Most of that training isn't live training. It is pre-recorded through video recordings or online interactive courses. So there are some links there in the blue, the Get Your Refund Training Center video recordings, and courses for VITA volunteers that you are able to self-enroll in. Now, step 4, after you've passed all required testing, is going to be to sign and submit your volunteer standards of conduct agreement. So to be added to our volunteer schedule, you have to complete and pass those tests, and then within the Link and Learn system. So typically what we tell people is to complete the test within the test booklet, and then go into the Link and Learn system and enter those test answers in. Then you'll electronically sign the form and download it and save it to your computer and email it to me. And lastly, we need you to attend a pre-season VITA meeting. So all volunteers, regardless of your volunteer position, are expected to attend a pre-season meeting. And this is for new and returning volunteers. These sessions provide important updates on our program expectations, any IRS tax law changes, and site logistics. Volunteers will also be able to tour the VITA site where they're volunteering, and there is a link there to go ahead and register for that meeting. And last, we're going to be going over some testing materials. So a reminder that you want to complete all the tests within the booklet before entering them into Link and Learn. And you can think of these as open book tests. You're able to use IRS training publications while completing them. And this guide contains links to the test booklet along with the corresponding training publications. After submitting your answers, the system will tell you whether you've passed or failed. And we cannot stress this enough. If you fail any IRS test once, please contact a site coordinator before attempting to retake the exam. Please do not proceed without further guidance because you can only take this test twice. And if you fail it twice, that may disqualify you from volunteering in any capacity at any VITA site, at least within that tax year. Then the next year you could go ahead and try again. But for the tax season, if you, for example, if you fail the first test, we wouldn't be able to have you work within our VITA site. You can also find all of these publications and trainings on the IRS website by doing a search. For example, for our testing booklet, you could search Form 6744 and the publication and the booklets will come up. So first we have the testing booklet, the Form 6744, which includes all 4 certification tests that you will need to take. We have the Volunteer Standards of Conduct test, the Intake Interview and Quality Review test, the Advanced Course Scenarios test, and the Site Coordinator test. And just remember that you're going to take either 2 to 4 of those tests, just depending on what your volunteer position is. So test number 1 is for all our volunteers. That's our Volunteer Standards of Conduct. And that training provides guidance and structure for regulating our VITA sites. Test number 2 is our Intake Interview and Quality Review tests, which the 2 publications that are available are the publication 5838, the handbook, as well as 5101, Quality Review Training. So both of these deliver training that is designed to encourage all volunteers to follow a thorough and consistent intake, interview, and quality review process. The third test that we have is the Advanced Course Scenarios test. And for this, you will need 3 different resources. First is the publication 4012, which is a volunteer resource guide. And this guide helps you prepare tax returns using the provided software, and it also explains some basic tax law concepts. We also have publication 17, which covers the general rule for filing a federal income tax return and supplements the information in the publication 4012. We also have the Link and Learn Practice Lab, which is a practice tool that allows volunteers to prepare tax returns using TaxSlayer, which is the same software that we use at VITA sites. The Practice Lab offers lessons to learn and use TaxSlayer for accurate tax preparation and e-filing with hands-on practice scenarios, webinars, and advanced exercises for continuing education. Both publications and the Practice Lab are necessary to complete the Advanced Course Scenarios test. Now, this test has 9 scenarios in all, and for scenarios 1 through 6, you do not need to prepare a tax return in the Practice Lab. You'll simply read the situation and use your publication 4012 to answer the questions that they ask. Now, for scenarios 7 through 9, you do need to prepare a tax return in the Practice Lab. Those scenarios will give you a completed Form 13614C, the intake paperwork, as well as the tax documents and identification documents to enter in a tax return into the Practice Lab. When you complete the return, it's going to generate a Form 1040, and you'll use that 1040 to answer the questions on those scenarios. Now, when you're entering in Social Security or employer identification numbers, you can replace the X's as directed with any 4 digits of your choice. But unless specified, do not start Social Security numbers with the number 9 because the system will register it as an ITIN number, which can disqualify the taxpayer from certain credits. And then you'll use your state, city, and zip code when completing any of the forms, unless otherwise indicated. Any question posed by the software that's not addressed in interview notes can be answered as you choose. You will need to create 2 accounts for this test. One is a Practice Lab account to create those practice returns, as well as the Link and Learn account to enter in your test answers. And everybody needs to create a Link and Learn account because no matter what volunteer position you have to enter in the test answers for the certification exams. Now, how to access the Practice Lab, you'll visit the link, so it says Link and Learn Taxes Practice Lab, and it will ask you for a universal Practice Lab password. That password is Train Pro Web in all caps no spaces. Volunteers without an account should create one, and returning volunteers should use their previous logins. Now, you may need to reset your password if you can't remember it from the year prior, but either way, be sure to record your account information. So after creating your account, there will be a screen where you can click Go to Practice Area, and you'll be redirected to the home screen of the Practice TaxSlayer software, where you can start working on the returns. You'll click Start New 2024 Tax Return to begin creating a new return, a practice return within the system. Last, we have the test number 4, Site Coordinator Test, and we have the publication 5088, which is Site Coordinator Training, as well as publication 5683, Handbook for Partners and Site Coordinators. Those cover general requirements and resources for coordinators of the VITA program. Then we have Lincoln Learn, which is the IRS's online e-learning and certification system. So VITA TC Central gives quick access to your frequently used tools, including tests, training materials, practice lab evaluations, and instructor resources. Publication 5378 also provides guidance for volunteers on how to register, certify, and take the certification test using Lincoln Learn taxes. So Lincoln Learn is going to be where you go in to enter in those test answers. It's also going to be the website that you use to generate your volunteer agreement. So for creating an account on Lincoln Learn, you'll go to Lincoln Learn and click Start Learning. And volunteers should create an account if they don't already have one. Returning volunteers will have to reset their password. And after creating that account, you'll have access to not only the certification test and volunteer agreement, but all of these publications and trainings as well. Now, once you open a test online, just know that you only have 2 attempts to pass. So if you have any questions at all, even when you're taking the test the first time, please feel free to reach out and we'll be more than happy to help. That is our entire onboarding guide for volunteers. We'll go ahead and go back to our presentation. Now, your next steps as a VITA volunteer. So if you haven't already, you're going to complete a volunteer application. Then we need you to choose a volunteer position. So we have admin assistant, intake screener, tax preparer, and Spanish translator. Now, if you're interested in preparing tax returns, you're going to select your preferred training method. You can either study independently using the onboarding guide, the provided testing booklet, and the IRS training materials and publications, or you can join our guided virtual training sessions, which again is it's actually 5 hours of guided Zoom training divided into 2.5-hour sessions. You'll then complete and pass the IRS certification tests, and then electronically sign your volunteer standards of conduct agreement and email it to me, and you'll need to register and attend a preseason meeting. We do have some upcoming volunteer opportunities. We're currently recruiting for our VITA mailer, so we're seeking volunteers to help with our year-end client mailers on December 18th and 19th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then, of course, we're always looking to grow our VITA volunteer team for the upcoming season. So if you have any friends, family, or colleagues, please feel free to share these volunteer opportunities with your network. And lastly, thank you so much for joining our volunteer orientation. Your time, energy, and commitment play a huge role in ensuring that our program runs smoothly and that we can continue supporting our community effectively. We truly appreciate you being part of the team. We appreciate our volunteers who return every season, as well as our volunteers who are newer. Thank you guys so much.